Game of Thrones and The Witcher have both defined the modern fantasy landscape, and Prime Video has a series that combines some of their best elements. This is, of course, a genre that can include TV shows of all shapes and sizes. The very essence of fantasy is the stretching of imagination to the extreme, allowing for expansive worlds that feel nearly as real as our own. What separates reality from these fantasy worlds, however, is the obligatory existence of some sort of magical system. Carnival Row is a 2-season, 18-episode fantasy TV show starring Orlando Bloom and Cara Delevingne, which premiered in 2019 and came to a close in 2023. The show is set in a unique urban fantasy world where mythical creatures have migrated to human-dominated cities to escape the dangers of their native homes. It's really something spectacular, and if you love Game of Thrones and The Witcher, it may just be right up your alley. Prime Video's Carnival Row uses a grounded magical system like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is fantasy through and through, but it's still fairly unique within the genre, as its magic system is very grounded. Magic isn't necessarily around every corner, at least not for ordinary folk. Targaryens have a latent sort of power, especially related to dreams and premonitions, though these abilities only appear in a select few within the family. Some distant lands feature individuals with strange, dark, and frightening forms of magic, most often centered on religious practices and spirituality. Carnival Row is much the same. Magic is gritty, dark, and mysterious, used in a ritualistic manner by a select few, such as the witch doctor like Haruspex. Just as in Game of Thrones, there's a sense that those who use magic in this way are dark and suspicious. It's a part of a culture that isn't well understood by the general population of Carnival Row's fantasy world. This sort of magical system is appealing because it allows even the most fantastical worlds to feel a bit more like our own. There's a grounded sort of relatability without compromising escapism, whimsy, or imagination. Game of Thrones and Carnival Row's magic systems also allow both shows to remain in the realm of fantasy while focusing predominantly on political concepts and intrigue. Still, in this regard, Carnival Row is a bit closer to The Witcher. Carnival Row's The Witcher-like fantasy race politics explained. The political intrigue of Game of Thrones is large-scale and overt, revolving around battles for leadership and rule. While this same idea is present in The Witcher, the Netflix fantasy series places greater emphasis on social politics. The powers that be take advantage of racial prejudice between humans and the various non-human races, especially elves. The inherent magic possessed by these beings is seen as a threat, while other forms of magic are appropriated for political gain. Similarly, Prime Video's Carnival Row sees Fae and other fantasy beings forced to enter human society as refugees, but they are treated there as second-class citizens. The Fae are feared and despised, often confined to camps and given only limited rights within the city. This is despite the fact that, as previously mentioned, Carnival Row's magical system means that most Fae don't have overt magical abilities. Regardless, political leaders and anti-immigrant movements manipulate the common masses into believing magical beings are dangerous, just as they do in The Witcher. How Carnival Row is unique from every other fantasy TV show. While Carnival Row shares these elements with Game of Thrones and The Witcher, it also brings several unique elements to the table. This is a rare fantasy series that doubles as a crime drama. Bloom's character is an inspector tasked with investigating a string of mysterious murders. The show has a noir sort of feel, enhanced by steampunk elements that sit right beside the more traditional fantasy tropes.